Diamond's hands trembled as she pressed herself against the cold marble wall of the penthouse hallway, her heart hammering so violently she was certain they could hear it. Through the crack in the door, she could see him, Go Min-hyuk, the man whose home she'd been cleaning for 3 weeks, the man who'd always seemed like just another wealthy businessman. But the scene before her shattered that illusion completely. 5 men knelt on the pristine white floor, blood trickling from various wounds, while Min-hyuk stood over them with an expression so cold it made her blood freeze. His voice, when he spoke in rapid Korean, carried a lethal calm that was somehow more terrifying than shouting would have been. "You stole from me," he said, switching to English, his accent thick but his words crystal clear. "Did you think I wouldn't find out?" Diamond's phone buzzed in her pocket. Too loud, impossibly loud. Every head in that room turned toward the hallway, toward her hiding spot. Min-hyuk's dark eyes locked onto hers through the crack, and something flickered across his face. Recognition. Then something else entirely. "Bring her to me," he commanded softly. Now. Diamond Wells had learned early that life wasn't fair, but she'd also learned that complaining about it wouldn't pay her bills. At 23, she juggled 2 jobs with the precision of a seasoned performer. Mornings at Morrison's diner serving breakfast to business people who barely looked at her, and evenings cleaning luxury apartments through Elite Home Services, an agency that catered to Manhattan's wealthiest residents. Her 3rd-floor walk-up in Queens felt worlds away from the gleaming penthouses she scrubbed, but it was hers. Well, technically it belonged to her landlord, but the rent was paid, barely, and her grandmother's medical bills were getting smaller each month. Slowly, painfully slowly. "Table 6 needs a refill," her manager Marcus called out, snapping Diamond back to the present. She grabbed the coffee pot, plastering on the smile that earned her decent tips, and made her rounds. The diner buzzed with morning energy, suits checking phones, construction workers joking loudly, students hunched over laptops. Diamond moved through it all with practiced efficiency, refilling cups, clearing plates, existing in that strange space where service workers live, simultaneously visible and invisible. "Keep the change, sweetheart," an older businessman said, leaving a 20 for an $8 check. Diamond's smile became genuine for a moment. Tips like that meant she could maybe, possibly, buy the textbook for her online business course instead of sharing a PDF with 3 other students. By 2 p.m. her shift ended. Diamond changed out of her uniform in the tiny staff bathroom, transforming from diner waitress to professional cleaning service employee with a simple swap of clothes. The Elite Home Services polo shirt was pristine white. She owned 3 and washed them religiously. Appearance mattered in this job. Rich people noticed everything. Her phone buzzed with the day's assignment. Penthouse 4501, Fawn 32 Park Avenue. Client, anonymous. Special instructions, discretion required. High-value client. Diamond's eyebrows rose. Park Avenue penthouses meant serious money. She'd cleaned expensive homes before, but this address was next level. The kind of place where doormen wore better suits than most people owned. The building towered above Manhattan, like a gleaming monument to wealth. Diamond approached the entrance, suddenly hyper-aware of her worn sneakers and the small stain on her bag that wouldn't come out no matter how many times she scrubbed it. "Elite Home Services," she told the doorman, who looked her up and down with thinly veiled skepticism before checking his tablet. "4th-floor service elevator. Penthouse 4501. The resident isn't home. You'll have the code for entry." His tone suggested she should feel grateful for this information. Diamond nodded, refusing to let his attitude touch her. She'd dealt with worse. The service elevator was smaller than the main one, but still nicer than most apartments she'd seen. It rose smoothly, silently, and opened onto a private hallway with only one door, a single penthouse occupying the entire floor. The code worked on the first try, and the door swung open to reveal a space that took her breath away, despite her best efforts to remain professional. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased a view of Manhattan that belonged in magazines. The decor was minimalist, but clearly expensive, all clean lines, dark wood, and subtle Asian influences that spoke of taste rather than showiness. And it was pristine, almost unnaturally so. Diamond set down her supplies and got to work, starting with the main living area. The apartment felt more like a showroom than a home. No personal photos, no clutter, nothing that revealed who actually lived here. Just expensive furniture arranged with geometric precision and art that probably cost more than her entire year's salary. She was dusting a shelf of what looked like first-edition books when her phone buzzed. A text from her grandmother. "Doctor called." Need to move up next appointment. They want more tests. Diamond's hand stilled. More tests meant more bills. More bills meant she couldn't think about it right now. One problem at a time. She worked systematically through the penthouse. Living room, kitchen, which looked barely used, dining area, home office. Each space revealed the same pattern. Expensive, immaculate, impersonal. Whoever lived here didn't really live here. They existed here, maybe, but there was no warmth, no life. The bedroom was different. Not messy, exactly, but more lived in. A book in Korean lay open on the nightstand. A jacket hung over a chair, expensive, black, with perfect tailoring. The bed was made with hotel precision, but there was an indent on one pillow, suggesting someone actually slept here at least. Diamond changed the sheets, dusted every surface, cleaned the bathroom until the marble gleamed. She was finishing up when she heard it, the soft ding of the elevator arriving. Her watch showed 6:47 p.m. The assignment sheet had said the resident wouldn't return until after 8. Diamond quickly gathered her supplies, heading for the service exit near the kitchen, but voices stopped her. Multiple voices, all male, all speaking Korean. She shouldn't eavesdrop. She should make her presence known, apologize for still being here, and leave. But something in the tone, hard, dangerous, angry, made her hesitate. Through the partially open bedroom door, she could see into the main living area. 5 men entered first, and Diamond's blood ran cold. 2 had visible injuries, swollen eyes, split lips. They moved with the resigned shuffle of people who knew what was coming and couldn't stop it. Then he entered. Tall, probably 6 feet, with sharp features and dark eyes that swept the room with predatory awareness. He wore all black, dress shirt, slacks, everything expensive and perfectly fitted. His presence filled the space in a way that had nothing to do with physical size and everything to do with power. This was her anonymous client. Diamond knew it with absolute certainty. Go Min-hyuk. She'd heard that name whispered by other cleaners, always with a mixture of fear and respect. Elite home services called him high value and requiring discretion. But now Diamond understood what those corporate euphemisms actually meant. She should leave. Right now, immediately. But her feet wouldn't move, and her eyes couldn't look away as the scene unfolded with horrible clarity. Min-hyuk spoke in Korean, his voice low and controlled, but the menace underneath each word was unmistakable, even without translation. The injured men knelt on Diamond's freshly cleaned floor, and she felt a hysterical urge to laugh or cry at how absurd it was to worry about bloodstains in this moment. "You stole from me," Min-hyuk said, switching to English abruptly. His accent was noticeable, but his pronunciation precise. "Did you think I wouldn't find out?" One of the kneeling men started to speak, rapid Korean pouring out in what sounded like desperate pleading. Min-hyuk raised one hand, and the man fell silent immediately. "I gave you opportunity. I gave you position. I gave you trust." Min-hyuk's tone never rose, never fluctuated. Somehow that made it worse. "You repay me with betrayal." Diamond's phone buzzed in her pocket. The sound barely audible, just a soft vibration. Might as well have been a gunshot in the tense silence. Every head turned toward the hallway, toward her inadequate hiding spot behind the bedroom door. Min-hyuk's eyes found hers through the crack, and Diamond felt pinned like a butterfly to a board. His gaze was dark, unreadable, and absolutely focused. For a long moment neither of them moved. Then his expression shifted, just slightly, but enough for her to see surprise, then calculation, then something that looked almost like resignation. "Bring her to me," he commanded in Korean, then added in English, "Now, carefully." 2 men Diamond hadn't noticed before, larger, clearly security, moved toward the bedroom with frightening efficiency. Diamond stumbled backward, her cleaning supplies clattering to the floor, her mind screaming at her to run even though there was nowhere to go. "Please," she managed, her voice shaking. I didn't see—" "Don't lie to me." Min-hyuk's words cut through her panic. He hadn't moved from his position, but his attention was entirely on her now, those dark eyes cataloguing every detail. "You saw. The question is what I do about it." The security guards flanked her, not touching but making it clear that running wasn't an option. Diamond forced herself to straighten, to meet Min-hyuk's gaze directly. If this was it, if her life was about to end in some rich criminal's penthouse, she wouldn't go out cowering. "I'm a cleaner," she said, pleased that her voice only shook a little. "Elite Home Services sent me. I was supposed to be done before you got home. Your name?" "Diamond. Diamond Wells." Something flickered in his expression. "Diamond," he repeated, as if testing the word. Then, in Korean, he issued a rapid series of commands. The injured men were hauled to their feet and dragged toward the service entrance. The security guards remained, watching her with professional detachment. Min-hyuk approached, each step measured and deliberate. He stopped just outside her personal space, close enough that she could smell his cologne, something expensive and subtle but not close enough to touch. His eyes traveled over her face with an intensity that made her skin heat, despite her terror. "You're a student," he said. Not a question. Diamond blinked. "How did you—" "Your bag. University textbook visible." He gestured toward her cleaning supplies where her backpack had fallen open, revealing her business management text. "You work 2 jobs to pay for school. You send money to family. You're tired, but you don't complain because complaining doesn't pay bills." The accuracy of his assessment left her speechless. "I'm right." A slight curve touched his lips. Not quite a smile, but close. "Yes," Diamond admitted, unsure what else to say. Min-hyuk studied her for another long moment, then turned away, moving to the windows overlooking the city. The lights of Manhattan glittered below, millions of lives playing out in ignorance of this bizarre confrontation happening 45 stories up. "You have a problem, Diamond Wells," he said without looking at her. "You witnessed something you shouldn't have. This creates complications." "I won't tell anyone." The words tumbled out desperately. "I swear, I need this job. I can't afford. I have student loans and my grandmother's medical bills and—" She stopped, realizing she was babbling. "You think promising silence is enough?" Now he did turn, and his expression was cold again. "You think I can trust the word of a stranger who happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time?" Diamond's throat tightened. "Then what do you want from me?" The question hung in the air between them. Min-hyuk tilted his head slightly, considering her with that same unreadable expression. When he finally spoke, his words weren't what she expected. "You'll continue cleaning my apartment, twice a week, as scheduled, but you'll report only to me. No discussion of what you saw, no police, no friends, no family, complete discretion." "That's it." Diamond couldn't keep the skepticism from her voice. "That's it," he confirmed, then added, "For now." Those last 2 words sent a chill down her spine. But what choice did she have? Diamond nodded slowly. "Okay, yes, I can do that." "Good." Min-hyuk pulled out his phone, typed rapidly, and hers buzzed a moment later. "My private number. You'll text me when you arrive and when you leave, every time. If you're even 5 minutes late without explanation, there will be consequences." Diamond looked at the number on her screen, reality crashing over her in waves. She'd just agreed to work directly for a criminal, a dangerous one, the kind who made men kneel and bleed on expensive floors. But she needed the money, desperately, and refusing wasn't really an option, was it? "I understand," she said quietly. "Do you?" Min-hyuk stepped closer again, and this time he did enter her personal space. Diamond's back hit the wall, and she realized he'd been herding her there. His hand came up and she flinched, but he only tucked a stray curl behind her ear with surprising gentleness. "You're afraid of me," he observed. "Good. Fear keeps people alive, but you're not running. Also good. I respect courage." His touch lingered for a heartbeat longer than necessary, and Diamond felt her pulse skip in a way that had nothing to do with fear. Up close, he was devastatingly handsome, sharp cheekbones, full lips, eyes that seemed to see straight through her. Dangerous in an entirely different way than she'd first thought. "Go home, Diamond Wells," he said softly, stepping back. "I'll see you Tuesday evening, 6 p.m. sharp." Diamond gathered her supplies with shaking hands, hyper-aware of his gaze following her every movement. At the door she paused, some reckless part of her brain demanding she speak. "What you did to those men—" "Don't ask questions you don't want answers to," Min-hyuk interrupted, his tone carrying a warning edge. "In my world, betrayal has consequences. Always." Diamond nodded and fled, his words echoing in her mind as the elevator descended. Only when she was outside, breathing the cool evening air of Manhattan, did she let herself truly process what had just happened. She'd witnessed a crime. She'd been caught by a mafia boss, and instead of ending up like those bleeding men, she'd somehow been given a job offer. Her phone buzzed again. A text from the number Min-hyuk had sent. "Tuesday, 6 p.m. Don't be late." Then another message. "Delete our conversation from your phone, all of it. Do this every time." Diamond stared at the screen, then at the gleaming tower above her. Somewhere up there, Go Min-hyuk was doing whatever dangerous men did after dismissing witnesses to their crimes, and she'd just agreed to walk back into that world in 4 days. Tuesday arrived too quickly. Diamond spent the intervening days oscillating between terror and bizarre curiosity. She'd Googled Go Min Hyuk, carefully using the library computers instead of her phone, and found exactly what she expected. Wealthy businessman, real estate investments, charitable donations to Korean cultural organizations, the perfect public facade for whatever he really did in the shadows. She'd almost convinced herself not to show up, almost called Elite Home Services to request a different assignment, almost done a dozen things that would have been smarter than walking back into that penthouse, but her grandmother's latest medical bill sat on her kitchen counter like a weight and almost didn't pay debts. At 5:55 p.m., Diamond stood outside Min Hyuk's door, her hand hovering over the keypad. She sent the required text, "Here." The response came immediately, "Come in." The penthouse looked exactly the same, pristine, expensive, empty of personality. But this time Min Hyuk was there, standing at the windows with a glass of what looked like whiskey, wearing black slacks and a white dress shirt with the sleeves rolled up. He didn't turn when she entered. "You came," he said. "Did you think I wouldn't? I thought you'd consider running." Now he did look at her, those dark eyes assessing. Most people would have. Diamond set down her supplies, forcing her voice steady. "Most people don't have my bills." Something that might have been respect crossed his features. "Practical. I appreciate that." He moved to the kitchen island, setting down his glass. "Before you start cleaning, we need to establish some rules." "More rules?" "Many more." He counted them off on his fingers. 1. You arrive exactly on time. 2. You text me when you arrive and leave. 3. If you see or hear anything unusual, you forget it immediately. 4. No one knows you work directly for me, not your employer, not your friends, not your family. 5. You don't enter my office or bedroom unless I specifically request it. Diamond listened, her unease growing with each rule. "This sounds less like cleaning and more like being careful," Min Hyuk finished. "It is. My world has dangers you can't imagine, Diamond. These rules keep you safe." "Safe from what?" He studied her for a long moment before answering. "From people who would hurt you to hurt me. From asking questions that lead to answers you can't unhear. From becoming a target." "I'm just your maid," Diamond protested. "Why would anyone care?" The words died as Min Hyuk crossed the space between them in 3 strides. He didn't touch her, but his proximity was overwhelming, his voice dropping to something low and intense. "You stopped being just anything the moment you saw what happened in this room. You're connected to me now, whether you like it or not. That connection makes you valuable to my enemies." Diamond's heart hammered. "I don't want to be valuable. I want to clean apartments and pay my bills and finish my degree." "Then we want the same thing," Min Hyuk said. "You follow my rules, stay invisible, and eventually this arrangement becomes routine, boring, safe. And if I break the rules?" His expression hardened. "Don't." The tension stretched between them, thick enough to cut. Then Min Hyuk stepped back and Diamond could breathe again. "Clean," he commanded. "I'll be in my office. Don't disturb me unless the building is on fire." He disappeared into the room she'd been told never to enter, and Diamond was left alone with her racing thoughts and a luxury penthouse that suddenly felt like a very pretty cage. She cleaned mechanically, her mind churning. This was insane. She should quit, run, tell someone what was happening. But every time she considered it, she thought of her grandmother's medication, her student loans, the impossibly small amount in her bank account. What was the saying? Between a rock and a hard place? More like between poverty and a mafia boss. 2 hours later, Diamond was finishing the kitchen when Min Hyuk emerged from his office. He looked tired, a crack in his usual composed facade that made him seem unexpectedly human. "Coffee," he said, moving to the expensive machine on the counter. "Do you drink coffee?" The question was so normal, so domestic that Diamond almost laughed. "Yes?" "Good. I hate drinking alone." He made 2 cups with practiced efficiency, sliding one across the marble counter to her. "Sit." Diamond perched on a bar stool, hyper-aware of the situation's absurdity. Drinking coffee with a crime lord in his penthouse kitchen at 8 p.m. on a Tuesday, her life had taken a sharp left turn into bizarre territory. "Tell me about your grandmother," Min Hyuk said, catching her off guard. "Why do you want to know?" "I'm curious." He sipped his coffee, watching her over the rim. "You work yourself to exhaustion for her. That kind of dedication is rare." Diamond hesitated, then decided honesty couldn't hurt worse than the situation she was already in. "She raised me after my parents died. Car accident when I was 7. She's all I have. Min Hyuk's expression shifted subtly. Family is important. Is that a Korean thing or a mafia thing? The words slipped out before Diamond could stop them. To her surprise, Min Hyuk smiled, actually smiled, and it transformed his face completely. Both. In my culture, family obligation is everything. In my business, loyalty to your family, your organization keeps you alive. Is that why those men— Diamond stopped herself. Why they were punished? Min Hyuk finished calmly. Yes, they stole from their family, from me. That betrayal cannot stand unpunished, or others will think weakness. That's harsh. That's survival. He set down his cup, his gaze intense. In your world, Diamond, you follow rules set by society, by law, by institutions. In my world, we make our own rules, break them, and the consequences are immediate and severe. It's not pretty, but it's honest. Diamond absorbed this, trying to reconcile the man who terrified her days ago with the one currently discussing philosophy over coffee. Why are you telling me this? Because you're curious, because you're not stupid enough to pretend you don't have questions, and because— He paused, something unreadable crossing his features. Because I want you to understand. Understand what? That I'm not a good man, but I'm not needlessly cruel. That my world has logic, even if it's not yours. That you're safe as long as you're under my protection. The weight of that last statement settled over Diamond like a blanket, simultaneously comforting and suffocating. Her phone buzzed. A text from her grandmother. Feeling better today. Don't worry about me, baby. Focus on your studies. Min Hyuk glanced at her screen before she could angle it away. The doctor appointment, how did it go? Diamond stiffened. How do you know about— I know everything about people in my life, he said simply. It's necessary. So, the appointment? She should be angry about the invasion of privacy. She should demand he stop whatever surveillance he'd clearly started. Instead, Diamond found herself answering honestly. They want more tests, probably more bills I can't afford. Min Hyuk pulled out his phone, typed rapidly. Hers buzzed again, a notification from her bank app. Diamond's breath caught as she saw the deposit amount. That's too much, she whispered. Way too much. I can't— You can and you will. His tone brooked no argument. Consider it a bonus for your discretion. Use it for your grandmother's care. Tears burned Diamond's eyes unexpectedly. Why are you doing this? Min Hyuk stood, gathering their coffee cups, his expression unreadable again. Because I can. Because your loyalty has value. Because— He stopped, meeting her gaze directly. Because something about you interests me, Diamond Wells. I haven't decided if that's good or dangerous yet. For you or for me? Both, he admitted. Now go home, same time Thursday. Diamond gathered her things in a daze, that impossible deposit still glowing on her phone screen. At the door, she turned back. Thank you, she said quietly. Min Hyuk nodded once, and Diamond could have sworn she saw something almost vulnerable flicker across his face before his mask slammed back into place. Over the next 3 weeks, a strange routine developed. Diamond arrived twice weekly, cleaned Min Hyuk's penthouse with meticulous care, and tried to ignore how her pulse quickened whenever he was home, which was increasingly often. He'd started timing his schedule to coincide with her visits. Sometimes he worked in his office with the door open. Sometimes he sat at the kitchen island with his laptop, conducting business in Korean while she cleaned around him. Sometimes he just watched her with those dark, unreadable eyes that made her skin prickle with awareness. They talked about small things at first, her classes, his preference for Ethiopian coffee beans, whether New York or Seoul had better street food. But gradually the conversations deepened. He told her about growing up in Seoul, about the pressure of family expectations, about coming to America at 19 and building his empire from nothing. He didn't tell her exactly what that empire consisted of, but Diamond wasn't naive. The visits from dangerous-looking men, the conversations in Korean that stopped when she entered rooms, the way he carried himself with the absolute confidence of someone who controlled life and death, it all painted a clear picture. Thursday evening, Diamond was dusting the living room when raised voices erupted from Min Hyuk's office. She froze, her hand still on the bookshelf, as the door flew open and 3 men stormed out, speaking rapid, angry Korean. Min Hyuk followed, his expression thunderous. "Get out," he said in English, clearly for Diamond's benefit. "All of you. Now." The men left, one shooting Diamond a look that made her blood run cold. When the door closed behind them, Min Hyuk poured himself a drink with barely controlled violence. "That looked intense," Diamond ventured carefully. "Business disagreement." His knuckles were white around the glass. Nothing that concerns you. If people are going to look at me like that, maybe it does concern me. Min Hyuk's head snapped up, and for the first time, Diamond saw real anger directed at her. What did I tell you about asking questions? You told me not to ask about things I saw. I'm asking about the man who just looked at me like I was a problem to be eliminated. The silence stretched taut between them. Then, unexpectedly, Min Hyuk laughed, a harsh, humorless sound. You have courage, I'll give you that. Foolish courage, but courage nonetheless. Who was he? Park Jae-won, second in command of the Baek family, a rival organization. Min Hyuk set down his glass with careful precision. We're negotiating territory disputes. He doesn't like that I'm being... He stopped himself. Being what? Distracted, Min Hyuk finished, his gaze intense on her. He thinks you're a distraction. Diamond's stomach flipped. Am I? Yes. The admission was quiet, but absolute. You are. He crossed to her in 3 strides, and Diamond found herself backed against the bookshelf, his hands braced on either side of her head. Not touching, but close enough that she could feel his heat, smell his cologne, see the conflict warring in his dark eyes. I don't get distracted, Min Hyuk said, his voice low and rough. I don't let civilians into my world. I don't care about the problems of people who work for me. But you, his jaw clenched, you make me want to break all my own rules. Diamond's breath caught. Min Hyuk, tell me to step back, he commanded. Tell me this is inappropriate. Tell me you're just my employee and I'm overstepping. She should. Every rational cell in her brain screamed at her to do exactly that. Instead, Diamond heard herself whisper, what if I don't want you to step back? Something flared in his eyes. Hunger, possession, need. His hand came up, fingers tangling in her hair, with surprising gentleness for someone who wielded such casual violence. This is a mistake, he murmured, even as he leaned closer. Probably, Diamond agreed, her heart hammering. I'm a dangerous man. I know. I could hurt you in ways you can't imagine. I know that too. Min Hyuk's thumb traced her lower lip, and Diamond shivered. Then why aren't you afraid? Who says I'm not? But even as she said it, Diamond knew it was a lie. She was terrified, but not of him, of this feeling, this pull, this impossible connection forming between them, despite every reason it shouldn't. The kiss, when it came, was inevitable. Gentle at first, almost questioning, then deeper, as Diamond responded with equal hunger. His hands tightened in her hair, and she gripped his shirt, all the tension of weeks culminating in this moment of surrender to something neither of them could control. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Min Hyuk rested his forehead against hers. This changes everything, he said hoarsely. I know. You're not just my employee anymore. You're... He stopped, seeming to struggle for words. You're mine to protect, mine to care for, mine. The possessiveness should have scared her. Instead, Diamond felt something warm unfurl in her chest. Is that a Korean thing or a mafia thing? Min Hyuk laughed, actually laughed, and kissed her again. Both. A phone buzzed. His, not hers. He pulled it out, glanced at the screen, and his entire demeanor shifted back to business mode so fast Diamond got whiplash. I have to go, he said, his voice hard again. Something's come up. Stay here. Don't leave until I text you it's safe. What? Why? Diamond grabbed his arm. What's wrong? Park Jae-won left here angry. Angry men make stupid decisions. Min Hyuk cupped her face, his touch gentle despite his urgent tone. I need to handle this. You stay here where I know you're protected. Promise me. Min Hyuk, promise me, Diamond. His eyes burned with intensity. I promise. He kissed her once more, hard and fast, then was gone, leaving Diamond alone in the penthouse with her racing heart and the sudden terrifying realization that everything had just shifted irrevocably. She tried to continue cleaning, but it was impossible to focus. Her lips still tingled from his kiss. Her mind kept replaying the feeling of his hands in her hair, the barely controlled need in his voice when he'd called her his. An hour passed, then 2. No text from Min Hyuk. Diamond paced the living room, her phone clutched in her hand. Outside the windows, Manhattan glittered indifferently, millions of people living their normal lives, while hers spun completely out of control. Her phone finally buzzed at 10:47 p.m., but it wasn't a text. It was a call from an unknown number. Hello? Is this Diamond Wells? A woman's voice, professional, cold. Yes? Who is this? This is Mercy General Hospital. You're listed as an emergency contact for Go Min Hyuk. You need to come immediately. The world tilted sideways. What happened? Diamond's voice barely worked. He's alive, but he's asking for you. I suggest you come quickly. The line went dead. Diamond stared at her phone, then at the penthouse that had become so familiar, then back at her phone. Every instinct screamed at her to run. From this world, from this danger, from feelings she had no business feeling. Instead, she grabbed her coat and ran for the elevator. Because somewhere in the last 3 weeks, Go Min Hyuk had stopped being just a dangerous man she worked for. He'd become something else entirely, and Diamond was absolutely terrified to discover exactly what. The hospital corridor smelled like antiseptic and fear. Diamond ran through the sterile hallways, her heart in her throat, until she found the private room the nurse had directed her to. 2 large men stood guard outside. She recognized them as Min Hyuk's security. "I'm Diamond Wells," she said breathlessly. "He called for me." They exchanged glances, then one opened the door without a word. Min Hyuk lay in the hospital bed, his shirt removed to reveal bandages wrapped around his torso and left shoulder. His face was pale, but his eyes were alert, and when he saw her, something like relief washed over his features. "You came," he said, his voice rough. "You idiot," Diamond choked out, tears threatening. "What happened?" "Park Jae-won was stupider than I anticipated." Min Hyuk winced as he tried to sit up. "He tried to make a point. I made a stronger one. He won't be a problem anymore." "You're stabbed!" Diamond moved to his bedside, her hands hovering uncertainly, wanting to touch but afraid of hurting him. "Barely. Missed anything vital." He caught one of her hands, pulling her closer despite her protests. "I'm fine, Diamond. You're in a hospital. I'm alive. That's what matters." His thumb stroked over her knuckles. "And you're here, safe." Diamond sank into the chair beside his bed, the adrenaline crashing and leaving her shaky. "When they called and said you were hurt, Her voice broke. "You were scared," Min Hyuk finished gently. "So was I. Not of being hurt. I've been hurt before, but the thought that Park might target you to hurt me." His grip on her hand tightened. "That's what sent me after him immediately. That's what made me reckless. This is because of me. No, this is because he threatened something that's mine." Min Hyuk's dark eyes burned into hers. "You're mine, Diamond. I claimed you the moment I kissed you, and in my world, that means something. It means I protect you with everything I have. It means I'd burn down anyone who tries to hurt you." Diamond's breath caught at the intensity in his voice, the absolute conviction. "Min Hyuk, this is insane. We barely know each other. You're a—" She stopped. "Criminal," he supplied. "Gangster? Monster? I was going to say a man with dangerous enemies who could get me killed just by association." "Yes," Min Hyuk agreed simply. "All of that is true, which is why I'm giving you a choice right now, Diamond. Walk away, I'll give you money, enough to cover your grandmother's medical bills and your student loans. You'll never have to see me again. You'll be safe. Or you stay. You choose me, this life, this danger. You let me protect you. You accept that you'll never have a normal relationship or a safe existence, but you'll have me. Completely, absolutely, forever." The weight of that ultimatum hung between them. Diamond looked at his face. This man who'd terrified her, protected her, challenged her, kissed her like she was precious. This man who'd somehow become essential in just 3 weeks. "That's not fair," she whispered. "Life isn't fair. You told me that yourself." "I didn't mean—" "What do you want, Diamond?" Min Hyuk interrupted, his voice intense. "Forget what's smart or safe or reasonable. What do you want?" Diamond closed her eyes, and the answer came with terrifying clarity. "You. I want you." Min Hyuk pulled her closer, ignoring the pain it must have caused until she was half leaning over the hospital bed. "Say it again." "I want you," Diamond repeated, meeting his gaze directly. "This is crazy and stupid and probably going to end badly, but I want you anyway." "It won't end badly," Min Hyuk promised fiercely. "I won't let it. You're mine now, Diamond. Mine to protect, mine to care for, mine to—" He kissed her, deep and possessive, and Diamond melted into it, all her doubts evaporating under the intensity of his claim. When they broke apart, Min Hyuk's expression had shifted to something almost vulnerable. "I need to tell you something. About why I reacted so strongly to Park's threat." "Okay. My mother was killed when I was 15, he said quietly. A rival organization targeted her to hurt my father, who was the boss before me. She was innocent, knew nothing about the business, just loved my father. They killed her anyway, made him watch. Diamond's hand covered her mouth. Min-hyuk, I swore I'd never let that happen again. Never care about someone who could be used against me. For 20 years I kept that promise. No relationships, no attachments, nothing that could be exploited. His jaw clenched. Then you walked into my penthouse with your tired eyes and stubborn pride, and you ruined everything. I'm sorry. Don't be. He caught her face in his hands. You gave me something I thought I'd never have again. You made me feel human instead of just powerful. You saw me, really saw me, and didn't run. Do you understand how rare that is? Diamond understood. She'd seen him at his most dangerous and his most vulnerable. She'd witnessed his violence and his gentleness, and somehow, impossibly, she'd fallen for all of it. So what happens now? She asked. Now? Min-hyuk smiled, and it was predatory and possessive and somehow tender all at once. Now you move into the penthouse under my protection. No more working yourself to death. No more worrying about bills. You focus on finishing your degree, and I focus on making sure no one ever threatens you again. That's a bit sudden. You think I'm letting you go back to that apartment where anyone could get to you, where you're vulnerable? Min-hyuk's voice hardened. No, you're too precious to risk. You're mine, which means you live where I can keep you safe. The possessiveness should have annoyed her. Instead, Diamond felt that same warm unfurling in her chest. Is this what I signed up for? Being bossed around by a crime lord? Bossed around by your man, Min-hyuk corrected. There's a difference. My man, Diamond tested the words. That sounds right, he finished. It sounds right because it is right. You feel it too, don't you, this connection, this inevitability? She did. Against all logic, against every ounce of common sense, Diamond felt it. This magnetic pull, this sense of belonging with someone completely wrong for her in every way except the only one that mattered. What do I tell my grandmother? Diamond asked practically. The truth, that you're seeing someone, that he's Korean, successful and crazy about you. She doesn't need to know the rest. Min-hyuk shifted, wincing. Bring her to the penthouse. Let me meet her properly. Family is important. You want to meet my grandmother? I want everything that's yours, Min-hyuk said simply. Your past, your present, your future, all of it. I told you, I don't do things halfway. A knock on the door interrupted them. One of Min-hyuk's men entered, spoke rapidly in Korean. Min-hyuk's expression darkened, then cleared. What? Diamond asked. Park Jae-won's family is suing for peace. They're acknowledging my claim on... He paused. On my territory and interests, including you. They're acknowledging me. In our world, when someone claims protection over another person, especially across organizations, it's recognized. Official. They're acknowledging that you're under my protection, which means touching you means war with me. Min-hyuk's smile was sharp. No one wants war with me. Diamond absorbed this. The reality of her new life settling over her like a cloak. She was protected, claimed, belonging to a world she'd never imagined entering. So you think you can leave me? Min-hyuk asked suddenly, echoing the title she'd heard other employees whisper. After everything? After becoming mine? Diamond looked at him, this dangerous, powerful, surprisingly gentle man who'd somehow become her entire world in 3 weeks. No, she admitted. I don't think I can. Good. Min-hyuk pulled her down for another kiss. Because I'd chase you to the ends of the earth, Diamond Wells. You're mine. Forever. And somehow, impossibly, that promise felt like the safest thing in the world. Years passed, and the penthouse that had once felt like a cage became a home. Diamond graduated with honors, her business degree earned without the crushing weight of debt. Min-hyuk attended her graduation, sitting in the back row in a perfectly tailored suit, his pride evident despite his carefully neutral expression. Later, he'd given her a gift, a small gallery space in Chelsea, lease paid for 5 years so she could follow her secret dream of promoting young black artists. Her grandmother adored him, charmed by his respectful Korean manners and his obvious devotion to Diamond. She'd taken to teaching him to cook soul food, laughing at his attempts to master cornbread while he patiently taught her basic Korean phrases. The business, the dangerous, violent reality of Min-hyuk's world, still existed, but he kept her separated from the worst of it. Diamond knew enough to understand the stakes, but Min-hyuk's protection was absolute. No one touched her. No one threatened her. She lived in a bubble of safety maintained by her husband's reputation and ruthless efficiency. Husband. They'd married quietly, a small ceremony with only family and Min-hyuk's most trusted men. Diamond wore white, and Min-hyuk had actually cried when she walked toward him, his control cracking completely in the face of his love for her. Now, standing in the penthouse that had become theirs, Diamond watched the sunset paint Manhattan gold. Min-hyuk's arms wrapped around her from behind, his chin resting on her shoulder, and she leaned back into his strength. "No regrets?" he murmured against her ear. Diamond thought about the scared girl who'd witnessed a crime and been caught, who'd been given an impossible choice, who'd chosen danger and love over safety and loneliness. "Not even one," she said honestly. Min-hyuk turned her in his arms, his dark eyes soft with the vulnerability he showed only to her. "You're mine," he said. "Not a claim, but a promise." "Forever," Diamond agreed, kissing him as the city lights began to twinkle below. Some love stories start with chance, some with conflict. Theirs started with danger. But they all ended the same way, with two people finding home in each other,